I think
Oh,
Leicester City should make a move for Jadon Sancho, and let me give you justification.
hello, good evening, and welcome to episode 7 of the First for LCFC podcast, where once again, myself and the other two First for LCFC admins, Chris Mosen and Edward Noon, are going to have a look back over the key talking points about Leicester City. And I'm here purely to guide the sometimes chaotic but always interesting debate between these two. And so, speaking of debate, we might as well just get straight into the big talking point. As always, once again, it is VAR. It's something that just won't go away, will it? But a potentially crucial equalising goal for Burnley chalked out late thanks to a perceived foul on Evans. Chris, firstly, what did you make of the decision? Do you think that on this occasion VAR perhaps got it right, or is this still a massive work in progress?
I think I'm going to have to go over the latter. I think it was me who tweeted on the account saying it's as soft as the Mane one. I've watched it a few more times since, and I just can't get my head around the VAR rules, right? So if it's a clear and obvious error, it can get overturned, which it did. But was that a clear? For me, it looks really soft. It just looks really soft. So
What
it's just
does?
the inconsistencies between, say, what happened in our match, and then you look at like the Spurs game or something where there was an obvious handball and the goal stands. So I'm not sure if my problems with VAR or this decision. But ultimately, I do think it was soft, and we were lucky in this instance.
Ed, I suppose the question hinges on two things because one of the angles does show Evans' ankle appears to be clipped. In your mind, is that A, enough contact to impede him? And B, do you think he was going to get the ball anyway?
Well, first of all, I guess I have to agree with Chris, and I really don't like to do that. But I do think it was soft, and just by the words you used to describe it, you said from one angle, so not from every angle, and it appeared that he clipped him, not that it was an obvious clip. And even if there was contact, it wasn't a clear and obvious contact, in my opinion. So I guess going back to things we spoke about in previous podcasts, the best way for me to really determine whether I think it was a pen, should have been a goal, is if that happened to a Leicester attacker and our goal got cancelled, called off, how would I interpret it? And I think I'd be really annoyed. I think Burnley been a bit hard done by there, to be honest. But I know from our previous conversation you disagree. So do you want to offer the alternative viewpoint?
Yeah, that I will. I'm playing devil's advocate. I think it only takes in that sort of situation where the trailing leg is knocked into your standing leg. It doesn't take a huge amount of contact in order to make that happen, but it does impede you quite a lot. And I think that has taken any chance for Evans to clear the ball away from him. My biggest question mark is because, if I'm honest, I've only seen pictures of it, like the short videos. So I'm not sure if Evans was going to get back to it. Because, to be honest, at the game, I had absolutely no idea what was going on, which is one of the biggest criticisms of VAR for me. But I personally think the referee has got this one correct. If, as we said last week, this is the game now. Players have a right to be fouled, and I think you give a foul for that anywhere else on the pitch. So. And it happened before the ball hit the back of the net. So that is, I guess, by the laws of the game, a foul. But
you say you'd give it anywhere else on the pitch. Was it that dissimilar to the who was it yesterday? The Origi challenge.
I think that Origi.
There's definitely more contact in the Origi one, wasn't there? For me, anyway.
Yeah, and it's one of those, again, Evans has felt the touch and thought, oh, bloody hell, I'm not getting there, am I? Best take tumble, and if so, then I'm not happy about that at all. But
I think something we mentioned last week, or what I mentioned, I think, was that it's the way in which he goes down. Let's face it, you get clipped like that, you're not jumping over like that. It just didn't seem natural to me. And I do think that for me, there is an element, yeah, he's not catching up with that ball. You've got nothing to lose by just sort of sliding into the net on your knees, have you, really? and it worked. But for me, it's the way he falls isn't natural if you get tripped.
Yeah, no, I think you're right with that one. But it proved to be very decisive on the course of the game. But I think that despite that, Burnley will perhaps feel that the score was fair. Chris, what did you make of the overall Leicester performance? And do you think that the VAR is probably, whether it was used rightly or wrongly, has actually given a fair result on balance?
I think on balance, if you take it all into consideration and look at the way Burnley came negatively set up, again off the podcast we was describing, you were there, you saw that every time we was in possession, every single player was behind the ball. That's classic Sean Dyche, and that's not criticism. You're coming away to Leicester United showing us a great deal of respect, if anything, especially playing two men up top and still playing like that. But I think in terms of compare this to this time last season, we'd have probably ended up losing 1 or 2-0. Whereas this time we did hold our own, came back into it, and got 3 points with a massive slice of luck. Well, help of VAR. So I think there's massive positives to be taken out of this. How we're not giving up, we're creating chances. The way in which we're scoring goals as well. Tielemans seems to be coming into his own again. The player we saw last season, Vardy, rising above a centre back. You don't often see him go for headers like that, or at least win them. There's just a lot of positives to be taken from it for me, anyway.
Yeah, I think the VAR, it's a horrible cliche thing to say, but I think it will, over the course of a season, will sort of work out to be quite fair. It's like we were moaning at the Liverpool result, how we lost a point, and now we're sort of got on the fortunate side of it in that we actually gained an extra 2 points from it. So in some weird aggregate way, we're actually like better off, because without VAR, that Liverpool penalty may not have been given, and we would have drew today. So we would have only got 2 the other day. So only would have got 2 points rather than the 3 we actually got from it.
So, I mean, how much encouragement do you take from, like you said, Chris, the fact that this is probably the game last year that we, at the very best, after going 1-0 behind, we get a draw. So how much encouragement do you take from that and what it might mean for Leicester moving forward?
Well, a lot. Obviously, you can't quantify it, but again, remember there was times last season. I think I can't name exact specifics, but I remember, was it on New Year's Day we went away to Everton? I think 1-0, and then I think we had an easy game afterwards, maybe, and everyone was. And they're the games we were dropping points in. I mean, under Puel, we were getting wins against top 6 sides, but it was the teams who we should on paper be beating or at least drawing with. We weren't. I mean, so I think that speaks for itself, and I think. Ultimately, we're just playing a better brand of football now. The fans are happy, and obviously the players are as well. And we're seemingly, other than the wingers, which we are going to speak about, we seem to have great balance in that team. It's just there's a little bit missing, and we're that close to the perfect formula, I think.
Yeah, if you want to go back to the results you were on about, it was around last Christmas. We sort of beat Chelsea and Man City back to back. Then we lost at home to Cardiff and beat Everton away, and then lost at home to Southampton. So
exactly.
It's certainly, even if it's just my sort of subjective feeling about Leicester, I do feel now when we're playing, and this is no disrespect to get to teams like Burnley, you do go into these games sort of expecting to come out with 3 points and at least a decent performance. So confidence wise, it's certainly on the up.
Yeah, and I think that the squad will take a lot from that win, almost more than some of their performances against the bigger clubs, actually, because I think this is the first game in a little while where they were expected to go out and get 3 points. Burnley, with their dismal away record, normally that would be the ever giving Leicester City's opportunity to say, right, here, lads, we'll help you out. So that's that was quite good to see. So I mean, it was a different type of game as well, with Wood and Rodriguez up front, 2 very combative, very physical centre backs, and I think Evans and Soyoncu had a very different game on their hands. But is it Is it very encouraging for you again, Chris, to see that? I know that Wood did score the goal, but in general, they had those two under wraps for a majority of the game.
I think, again, we might have touched upon this in the previous episode, but for me, with our current centre-backs, them sorts of players are bread and butter for Soyoncu and Evans. I think they want a physical battle. Evans in particular, experienced. Soyoncu, he doesn't struggle. He's got that yard of pace on most strikers as well. I think they're battles that they relish. I think that the teams will struggle more against maybe the more agile. You got Aubameyang, players like that who are going to cause problems and really stretch us. But I think in terms of traditional 4-4-2 type players, I think we've got the measure of them, just from what I've seen and what my feeling is really.
I mean, the defensive unit as a whole is one that's been widely praised, but Chilwell is coming for a little bit of criticism, Ed, for his perceived almost negativity when he's got the ball, and the fact that he didn't come himself in glory with the Burnley goal, did he? What do you attribute Chilwell's lack of form to this season? Is it a confidence issue, or does it run a bit deeper than that?
Obviously, without being on the inside, it's hard to tell exactly what it is. He certainly had his critics, and every player, doesn't matter whether they're a Leicester Academy graduate or not. If you're not performing to the level that we know you can, then rightly so, some people will judge you harshly. But I guess we all need to remember really that he is still very young, but he sort of ruined it a bit for himself by bursting onto the scene and being so impressive at such a young age that we immediately expect something really great from him. And then given we've got such an amazing right back as another full back, he's sort of, if we're judging him against what Pereira's doing, who's a seasoned international player who's been playing European football year in, year out, it's a bit unfair as well. But I don't know, really. What do you think, having been to all the matches?
I think, sorry to jump in there, but I think you have hit a very casing point on the head there with, I don't think Chilwell's ever really torn up trees. I think he's been exposed this year because of how good the imbalance on the other side is. I think it's just showing his sort of deficiencies, if anything. He's not a bad player, but I don't think. I mean, he's had good spells, but I think there's like Pereira's, a class above him, and I think that's what's making the difference in terms of how he's coming across this season.
Well, so a bit of Ed, I know you love some stats, so here
I'm a big fan.
About to hit you with one. Chilwell, one of the biggest criticisms of him throughout the game was the fact that he played it backwards or sideways more often than not, and it was a real feature of the game actually, especially in the first half. So Chilwell made more passes than anyone on the pitch. He made 104. The closest to him for context was Soyoncu with 87. Nearly half of Chilwell's passes were backwards. That's 51 passes. That is 20 more than the guy in second. I think that came from them just cutting off his options and saying, we know he's not got the confidence at the moment. He didn't seem to be willing to take people on, which was such a feature from his breakout.
Maybe from a tactical point of view, and obviously I wasn't there, but maybe given how weak our wingers have been thus far this season, and the fact our fullbacks can offer that width, and maybe there was some good tactics from Burnley to not give these options to our wingers who can fullbacks who can create. Did you see anything like that may you think that's?
I think you're right. I think they did seem to shape up to keep it away from Pereira. Pereira made significantly less passes, but he had a greater impact on the game. I do think it is a case of him feeling a bit under the spotlight with his England breakthrough and with the talk about him with the links to big clubs. Well, I certainly hope so. But a part of it was the formation, and as always, we always put questions out to Twitter. And this time around, we have been practically inundated with them. So thank you to everyone that sent any in. We will definitely try and get through them all rather quickly. But Collis, at Collywood83, very good. His question was thoughts on the formation. He felt that 2 wide players yesterday offered very little, despite picking up both assists. Do we need so the second part of it is, do we need Maddison to shift back out there and Pratt into midfield? So this builds on something that Rodgers himself has come out and said. So Chris, firstly, how surprised were you to hear Rodgers' public criticism of our wingers? And do you agree with Collis that our wingers need to offer a bit more?
I think I'm not surprised. I think it's something we're seeing in the game more this season than we have in a few seasons gone by, where managers are publicly outing players. And it's not like Rodgers has been impatient or anything. I think it's got to that stage now. He's probably tried putting an arm around Gray, or anyone who was questioning there, but it's just not working. He's probably called him into his office. It's not working. He's probably gone direct to the coaching staff, said, take him aside, work with it. It's not working. Like, what else can you do? Like, it's probably the last chance now, last chance saloon for him just to publicly out him and say, look, you've got to show me what you've got now, or it's not good enough. And yeah, like I say, he's not done it in a detrimental or a demoralising way or an embarrassing way. Like, these players will know firsthand they're not doing it at the level they need to be. The rest of the team are ultimately carrying them. If we had a not a world-class winger, but like someone of Mahrez's ilk still in our team, that's an extra 10, 12 goals a season, you know? That's a massive difference. And I think Rodgers has a right to feel frustrated that there is an imbalance in the squad.
Yeah, I mean, Ed, very quickly, Chris has mentioned Mahrez in this team. Where do you think Leicester finish with Mahrez in the squad?
I'd be much more confident of a top 4 finish.
I think
at the minute, I'm looking top 6 would be nice, but I'd be looking top 4. I think, given the relative weakness of the other sides in and around the area, teams like United and Spurs really have been quite poor this season. A little bit more flair, guaranteed 8, 9, 10 goals a season. Same with assists. It would be an extremely exciting time to be a Leicester fan. Not that it isn't, but yeah, that extra wingman. But you know, who knows? I'm sure when Gray did play at the weekend, he didn't get a 10 out of 10 performance, but he did get that assist. And maybe if he has been told this is your last chance, and now he's come on and he's made an impact, maybe this could be a catalyst to kickstart his Leicester career and fulfill the potential that he once had.
Because combining nice segue from Demarai Gray, because combining a couple of the questions, firstly from QC, so Kevin Johnson, he says about Demarai Gray's contract is running out, and do we need to sell in January and then give us the funds to go for a more established winger? Chris, firstly, do you think that it is time for Leicester to cash in on Gray, whose contract expires in June of 21? So do you think that now is the time he's had his opportunity, and we should look to get some more investment back?
When you use the phrase cash in, I'm not really sure how much we're going to be cashing in. Other than his wages, which again probably aren't that significant. I don't really see us. I don't know, like, estimate what he's worth. In this current climate, it's hard to say, but I just don't see him going for, I don't know, like 10 mil, if that. It's hard to say. Even that seems like a lot of money for him, because he just has disappointed. And then if you think, what club would come in for him? Maybe a team that's going to be struggling this season. I can't see him like fitting. I can see him fitting into other teams, but I can't really see there being like a queue of clubs thinking, "Wow, this player." You know,
he's been long linked with Bournemouth, hasn't he? Seems like every transfer window, there's the rumours.
I mean, even looking at their wide options, I don't know. Like, I can't. In terms of saying, "Oh, we're going to cash in on him," I don't really see it as cashing in. I don't think we're a club that need to cash in on anyone, especially not now after that Maguire stuff. I do think that he's probably going to leave, but not for the financials. And I think it's how we spend the Maguire money that's sitting there. 60, 75 mil. If we do just fully go in on a wide man, that is buying us some class or real potential.
I mean, so Demarai Gray is rumoured to be on a contract of around £50,000. So it does free up a bit. I mean, you're right. I mean, how do you put a valuation on him? If you look around other transfers in the market, I mean, Danny Ings going for 20 million, for example, you think that maybe he'd be worth a little bit more than that.
Demarai Gray, according to transfermarket.co.uk, the most reliable source out there, obviously, is rated at 18 million.
18 million?
Yeah.
That's probably not a unfair assessment.
I'll chuck one in for you. I've literally just thought of this, and this is a classic Mosen thought. Someone like Leeds literally drop a division, like something like Matt Ritchie did, and just go there. That you're potentially sleeping giant. They might be interested. I don't know a lot about their wide options at present, but I wouldn't be surprised if it even resorted to something like that. To be honest.
So do you think that the answer is actually to loan him, or would you like to see that on a full-time basis?
He's not even that young anymore, is he? Or is he
23?
23. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if a championship club comes in for him, gets him for what, 12.5 million or something, and that's a permanent. I don't think there's any loaning into a championship ain't going to improve him as a player at Premier League level.
No. I mean, he's not quite done the business.
I feel like he would enjoy the opportunity of being a bigger fish.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
see him obviously he's very young at Birmingham, but he was showing promise, and then England under 21s with a lot of other surrounded by players who aren't really first team regulars in the Premier League. He sort of led the line and was one of their star players in what was a very decent team. So I can see merit in what Christian's saying.
So, also incidentally, transfer market ranks our highest value player as Yuri Tielemans and James Maddison, both at 40.5 million. If either of them went for that, it would be an absolute disaster. So David Hansford, Amar, as always, sends in brilliant questions. Both and also Rusty have essentially all asked the question: who do we think that Leicester should be targeting if they were to bring in another winger? We've had a few suggestions. Townsend, Zaha, Aarons from Newcastle, Zaha again from David, and Amar has suggested Kai Havertz from Bayern Leverkusen and Cengiz Under from Roma. Chris, I mean, firstly, what do you make of those guys? And secondly, do you have any suggestions yourself of who you'd like to see Rudkin put another masterclass on?
Yes, I have got a what I think is a controversial suggestion. But first of all, just to summarise on the suggestions you've rattled off there, and I'll focus on the main ones that I think people regard as the key ones there. So Zaha, for the money you'd have to pay, what would Palace demand him from Arsenal? Like 80, 90 million? Not for me. He is class. He is a very good player, but there's just something don't sit right with that amount of money for a player who does blow hot and cold and is patchy at best. In terms of the others, people like Townsend, probably never for me. Especially not now. I'd say his career's probably on the decline now. In terms of the German lad you mentioned, I don't know enough about him personally. You obviously see him on Twitter and various football accounts rating this kid massively. I couldn't even comment on him, to be fair. Or the guy from, was it Roma you said?
Yeah, Roma.
So yeah, that's my answer in terms of the first part of the question, and I'm not sure if Ed's got any extra opinions on those guys.
Personally, I would actually go for, obviously, going for someone and actually getting them is a very different thing. But I would go for and just see what Palace would want for Zaha. I think if we really want to put a marker down and say, look, we're not just this mid-table club anymore, we need to start being able to show that on the transfer market and picking up the star players from the lower teams in the league. And someone you see in other clubs around us do it, teams like Everton, and I know, yeah, they've picked up some players who haven't done it, who probably should have, but they've been signing players like Richarlison, who was the star player at Watford, and it just sort of cements their position as the bigger club who should, at least in theory, be targeting Europe. And I'm always a bit wary of chucking big money at a player who hasn't done it in the Premier League before. So I'd certainly at least inquire as to Zaha's availability and what sort of price he'd be available at. I can't really think of any other names.
It's an interesting point, but I think I wouldn't like to see Zaha come in purely because I've slated him on this podcast so many times I'd have to eat every single word. Just a word on Havertz. He's 20-year-old. He's got 7 caps for Germany. He's a golden boy nominee. He's in the same sort of bracket potential-wise as players like Sancho, De Jong. He's up there. So can't see us getting him personally. I'd love it if we did, but can't see it.
Well, it's interesting you should say that, actually, Jamie. Before you run away with the next topic, you've mentioned the player who I think, if we want to show real ambition, we should go for.
Just before you say it, is this ridiculous?
Yes.
Come on, it is, isn't it?
It's. Well, you've obviously not read. Well, me and Ed were talking about it in the group chat, so I'm going to come out and say it. It is Jadon Sancho. I think Leicester City should make a move for Jadon Sancho, and let me give you justification.
Right, come on then. You can go on then. Put some meat on these fairly ridiculous.
Well, obviously, I'll run through the obvious. Absolute quality player. He's developing at a rate of knots. He chopped in Man City to develop himself in Borussia Dortmund. I've never lived in Germany, but presumably he wants to move back to England, just purely family, etc. Looking at other top 4 teams that could be moving for him, it's likely. I don't think he'd go back to Man City. I don't think he'd necessarily fit in. Well, he'd fit into Liverpool, but whether he'd go there to sit on the bench, you're not sure. But either way, yeah, rule that out. The reason I think it could happen is because there are rumours that he is starting to upset the hierarchy at Dortmund. Just this last weekend, he was not included in the squad against Borussia Mönchengladbach, which is a top-of-the-table clash. It's very tight at the Bundesliga at the moment. Apparently, his discipline, like on the training field and like his timekeeping, is relatively poor. That's the same reason they got rid of Dembele to Barcelona. They just run out of patience. They've got other quality wide men in, people like Hazard who can easily step in. I just think it's going to cost a lot of money, and it's probably unrealistic, and I understand that. I'm not totally deluded, but I'm thinking, he's very young. He wants to probably come back to the Premier League. There's a space for you on that right wing. You're going to walk into this squad, and you could be part of something incredible. What are you saying?
Obviously would love to have him here. We would need to be in the Champions League for him to even consider it.
Agreed.
If Football Manager has taught me anything, and as we all know, that's the world's most accurate thing in the world. I mean, you look at the clubs that he's currently been linked with. His odds are 5-4 to end up at Man United. Then you got Man City, PSG, Chelsea, Arsenal, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Real Madrid. I mean, if Arsenal are in there, then why not us? I guess.
Man U were in there.
If you want a stupid name, I think we've got more chance of getting Meret back, but I genuinely couldn't see this happening in a month of Sundays.
Like I said, there is delusion within what I'm saying, but there's also that like 5% of like, if qualify for the Champions League and say his mood at Dortmund gets even worse and he does start getting dropped just on a more regular occasion, like, I don't know, like, he needs to look at his career and think, I don't want to suddenly become a bench warmer. And if we do say, imagine if we came like third or something, I mean, we're a proper club with intent at this stage, and just take that plunge. But I get, yeah, it's unlikely, and it's not
Well,
even.
let's take the name Leicester City out of the equation. If he has a decent season this year and wants to leave, and Premier League clubs interested, I reckon he'd cost the best part of £100 million. We could probably ask for £200,000 a week. Could Leicester pay that?
They wouldn't pay that. They could pay that, but they wouldn't. And I agree that would be a very silly move to put someone who he'd be 20 then or 19 to you're not going to put him as a highest earner at the club for various reasons. But if I mention someone like Messi or Ronaldo, they're never going to happen. But this is a young player who it will be looking for a move. I just don't. Dortmund aren't like an absolute class outfit. Like there's just I mean they're very good, the Champions League team, obviously. But if he does want to come back to England, then it'll be interesting.
No, it
Not
is.
convinced, Jamie.
I know. I mean, I think that the reasons behind us wanting to sign him are completely valid, and I don't think it's completely out of the realms of possibility. But let's just say I will be absolutely gobsmacked if it does come off. But I can completely see where you're coming from.
And I've got, just before we move on, I'm conscious you are going to move us on. I've got another wild card, and this is a literal wild card. He probably cost peanuts. He's 30. He has played in the Premier League, but he's tearing it up in the MLS, and it's Carlos Vela. So that's just more of a. I mean, I'd be a disappointing signing, and the MLS is obviously a step down, significant step. But apparently, I've seen bits and clips again. I think he's scoring like 7 in a row at the moment. He just seems to be pretty wild. I think he was last season as well. So that's just a name that's been bandied around on Twitter as well.
He's the record holder, isn't he now?
He's got 34 goals in 31 league games this season.
So yeah, I mean it's the MLS, but rather than going for someone we I'd regard as boring like Zaha, blah blah, been linked loads, I'd go for two, different options, and Vea's not going to cost a lot, and he's probably a bit too old to be that signing, but there's a name for you.
It's a good name.
As long as we sign better than we did last time we qualified for the Champions League.
Yeah, that is very important. Personally, if we were looking at players, I think we're going to be looking more around the likes of, I don't know, players like maybe Delafeu.
I was about to say him, Delafeu. I think he'd be a decent option.
I mean, he's not a winger, but the player that I would really like to see us bring in is actually James Ward-Prowse. I think he would suit how we play. But I know we disagree on him, don't we?
He's a centre mid, isn't he?
Yeah, but
we got about 30?
No, James Ward-Prowse.
We've got a lot of centre mids, Jamie.
Okay, we're on the topic of centre mids, and James Ward-Prowse, he strikes me as an average option.
He's one of those that can play attacking on the wing, and he's only just turned 24, so he's not, But anyway, that's my 2 pence anyway. So we will move on, Chris. You're absolutely right. One of the things Amar sent 2 questions in today. He doubled up, so thank you very much as always. About our home form, and he says that he believes Burnley is one of the toughest oppositions that we faced with how they played and being solid. How important do you think it is that we've made the King Power something of a fortress? I mean, our record at home is very, very good, Chris. And is this something that you think that we are going to maintain, or do you think maybe we've rode our luck to this point?
I think it's something that Rodgers mentioned. I'm not sure whether it was after the Wolves game. It probably wasn't. It was probably after a couple of home games. And I remember listening to Stringer on Radio Leicester, and he said something about he wants to make the King Power a fortress. And I think he's obviously come with that Celtic mentality, obviously, like Celtic Park's like this intimidating arena, etc. So they say anyway. So I think there's an element of that culture that he's trying to instill here. And I mean, so far he's doing a very good job. Obviously having somewhere to play where you've got a solid record is good, but to hear the manager actually vocalise that is again promising. He's saying all the right things. He's saying the things that the fans want to hear. I think there's an element of that being passed down from obviously the passing of our late owner, who obviously we commemorated this game gone by. But yeah, obviously there's that sort of family culture. There is a certain togetherness, and I think it is bonding together, and I think we are doing a good job of it. I'm not sure. I wouldn't describe the King Power as an intimidating place to come, but it can be a tricky place to come, whether or not you believe in that as a neutral or not. As a Leicester fan, I can see why it can be a tricky place to play football.
Yeah, I mean the atmosphere was a bit somber to start with, understandably, after the fantastically organised walk for Vichai and the beautiful, wonderful speech that Birch made as well. Actually, I've got to say it was quite emotional. But it was 3 points is a good tribute. But whether Leicester can, I mean, Amar, you have asked the question whether Leicester can go unbeaten at home. I suppose it's not out of the realms of possibility, Ed. What do you make of that?
I think it is.
Fair enough. That's it.
Why is that?
When we won the league title, we lost at home.
Years gone by.
Yeah, but to not lose to a single one of them, I think we can have an excellent record at home, and I think we can make it a fortress, and I think we can make it a place extremely few teams get anything from.
What was our record against the top six? I don't know the answer to this. At top six teams at home last season.
Good question. If you give me 1 minute.
Yeah, because I think my point being, I'm going to allude to the fact that we dropped points against weaker opposition, and just out of interest, like I know obviously everyone knows we've beaten big clubs at home over the past few seasons, so it's be interesting how that's aligned over the last 12 to 18 months.
All right, here we go. Yeah. At home, we lost to Liverpool, lost to Everton, if you call them a big team, lost to Spurs, beat Man City, lost to Man U, beat Arsenal, drew with Chelsea. So it wasn't a great. I think that's 3 results and 3 defeats.
Yeah, that is bad. I mean, that's worse than what I thought. But I think lif we're going to accumulate, let's say, last 3 seasons, I think we've probably taken points off the big 6 is what I was trying to get at. But, I mean,
I guess I'm just saying that. Yeah, I do think we'll get some wins. We've already got one against Spurs. I just don't think to get them from each team and without losing against a single one, and meaning we have no bad days, no runs where we get a few injuries, no off form, no issues with players all season, I think that's highly unlikely.
That's a fairly well answered question as always. Very good. Thank you, Amar, for sending that one in. Just going to try and get your points on your views on this one as well, guys. From Pearson Lynch. I don't know if you guys saw the rumours about Maddison, but Pearson says if the continuing rumours around Maddison to Man United prove to come true in January, A, how much do you think he is worth? And B, do you use the huge amount received on to directly replace him, or do you have faith in Pratt to step up and perhaps go for a top-class winger instead? So Chris, firstly for you then, how much do you think Leicester would demand from United for James Maddison?
Well, I think, again, just judging on what Rodgers has said, I think he didn't obviously mention a figure, but I think he said, alluded to around 80 million, saying that there'd obviously be entertaining offers of that sort of ilk. Right now, obviously, Man United keep sort of this inconsistency. One, I don't think he would go there if Ole Gunnar's still manager. I banged on about you want to play under a good coach. He's not a good coach. But what I'm worried about in general is Pochettino leaving Spurs for Man United. I think then I would respect Man United a lot more again. And then I think, it could be a tempting move for him. And in terms of the money, I don't think we'd reinvest it through the middle. I think it would, keep going to that wide man. because we have got options in the middle, but it would be a massive loss. But right now, I don't see it happening. Definitely not in January. You don't often see high-profile moves like this in January. Not for me anyway. And I think if we carry on, never mind what Man U are doing, if we carry on playing like this, no player is going to be leaving us in January.
Yeah.
Who's in the starting?
Yeah. I don't think Man U are an attractive proposition mid-season. I think the reason a Leicester player would want to go there at all, irrespective of who we are, where we're at in the league, is because they think they will be able to achieve more there because they've got a higher ceiling. However, midway through the season, if things keep going as they are, by January, and these deals take a long time to do, so it'll be by the end of January, if a deal was to be agreed, we could be 15, 20 points ahead of United. So I don't see the value in going then, even if an offer was made. Like, if you really had to go, I'd go at the end of the season so you can be part of sort of a reset on Man U with even more new players coming in, so you can sort of be seen as that new era rather than seeing out this season, which at the minute could be one of Man U's worst in sort of living memory. I wouldn't want to be part of that.
I mean, I am worried about him, particularly in the summer, as you say. But Chris, I suppose the interesting point you make is who. I mean, are there players even out there that we could tempt to come and step into the boots of Maddison?
What, to play through the middle?
Yeah, like, are there players of his ilk available in the market at the moment?
Well, that's the thing. Like, the obvious comparison, and someone I know for a fact wouldn't come, just based on England, is Mason Mount. You can put them in the same bracket. Even now, I'd say Maddison's a better player, but like just in terms of selection or even looking at Premier League players, they're probably in the same bracket. Otherwise, you've got players like Ross Barkley. They
Phil
don't.
Foden.
Yeah, I mean, well, Pep's literally written that off, hasn't he?
If we offered 500 million.
Yeah, yeah. No, I just think that, yeah, we could probably get someone like Ross Barkley. That doesn't excite me. Obviously, Maddison's an exciting player, but yeah, he has done worry.
Jack Grealish.
Again, I mean, the fact he's a Villa boy, isn't he? And he's their captain. Obviously, Leicester are sort of doing better than Villa, but I don't know. It wouldn't necessarily excite me that much. I do think he's a good player, but Maddison's the best out of everyone I've named just there. So
I'd be absolutely shocked if you went in January. Let's say that. I think we probably all agree, like, especially, and I don't think he'll go if we get in the Champions League either. So maybe that's our little safe haven. We know we might not lose anyone if we finish top four.
well, that's my question. And Ed, obviously, you know, you stood up for Man United in the past, which is fair enough. But say, okay, Leicester City qualify. They were in the group stages of the Champions League. Man U have qualified for the Europa League. Do we lose James Maddison?
I'd say probably depends who else they sign. If Man
United make James Maddison
on the table,
number one target.
Yeah, I mean, if they say, right, this summer we're signing Jadon Sancho, James Maddison, and a world-class centre mid, then I think it'd go. Well, I mean, their midfield's crap as well. But, yeah, I mean, if they say to him, look, we're signing you and two other three 50 to 100 million pound players, then I think he'll go. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I also say, and I know it's slightly different because he didn't even want to come here originally, but we won the league and Kante went like the first chance he got. So, and everybody loved him. So I don't know, the allure of the big club and a couple of extra zeros on the end of your weekly wage packet is, irrespective of how good they've been in the last 12 months, is a very attractive proposition.
Well, this is what I mean as well. Like, we're coming up under the risk of becoming a selling club. Like, we're getting these high tariff prices, but we're not actually reinvesting it on like high tariff players either. Oh, we were still doing what
I guess
Slot loved
Tillemans
to.
was the first one, wasn't he? Like, he's a big money signing.
True, but even at the time of him coming, he wasn't a great player at Monaco. He was out of favour there. It wasn't something that other Premier League clubs would look at and go, "Wow, yeah, we wanted him." Like they only wanted him since he started playing good for Leicester. Like we've never actually just gone, "Wow, he's 75 mil. And send the shockwave through the Premier League." So we are at risk of it. We're a high tariff selling club. We're not reinvesting the money in other high tariff.
But Christian, if we get to the Champions League, we're going to sign Jadon Sancho, so you don't need to worry about it.
If he is the shockwave move, I'm digging this podcast out and replaying it.
Which I think you would be more than welcome to. But my guess is that statement ends up as the soundbite at the start of this podcast, rather than being dug up in 6 months. But no, it is an interesting. It is a good point. I think the importance of our end position in the league this season really cannot be understated. I think top 4, and whether no one leaves is another matter, but I think you severely limit the chances of people going. I think and also you can't rule out the Rodgers impact as well. You think reputation-wise, as a manager in this league, there are only a few above him, in my view. But there you go. That's what I think. So, nice segue in is that Rodgers is going up against. Oh God, who wants to take a stab at pronouncing this name? The Southampton manager,
Hasenhüttl.
Thank you very much. So he goes up against Hasenhüttl, which is the most German name to ever be German. How do you see this game going then, Chris? I mean, firstly, we're going away Friday night under the lights. How do you think Southampton are going to approach the game? Do you think it'll be more like a Burnley, or are they going to come out and try and play a bit?
I think obviously. Well, it was over a weekend now, was it? I don't even remember when we ran through the next few fixtures. There was something about Southampton that I was just unsure of. I think I've totally changed my mind now. I do think we should have enough to outplay them. I think we'll see Maddison starting in the middle again. Again, the wide men won't be convincing for me, but I think it's the sort of game you're coming up against their fullbacks who aren't that. They're nothing special in terms of defensive capabilities, especially. And I think someone like Pereira could be an influential man. He could be man of the match again. I think it's these I remember that goal Vardy scored away at Southampton a few seasons ago. I think it was one of the early goals in his record stretch. I don't fear Southampton. It's just whether we play well enough to absolutely go 1 and 2-0 up.
Some stats.
Yeah,
we love some stats.
4 teams have scored less than Southampton this season, whilst only 2 have conceded more.
Wow.
So either end of the pitch isn't great.
But to be fair, looking at the stats against Wolves, they weren't shy coming forward, were they, away from home as well in that one?
They've won 1 league game in their last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Wait, that goes back. Does that go back to start of the season? One sec. The old internet tickers.
No, but I think looking at...
they've won 2 matches this season, and in both games the opponents had a player sent off. There's a stat for you. They haven't beaten 11 men this year.
Genuinely very good.
Their centre-back, or their 3 centre-backs, are Vestergaard, Yoshida and Bednarek from... none of them 3 are... I'm surprised Yoshida, I don't know, it just doesn't...
Stats. Sorry, I'm just...
That's all right.
The last 2 home matches combined, they've conceded 7 goals. And that was against 11 men.
Right.
So in short, I don't rate them.
Right. That's a good point. So Chris, you're right. So they're playing 3 at the back with the 3 guys you just mentioned. None of them are exactly blessed with pace. This has got to be an area you see Vardy getting some joy, right?
I do see Vardy scoring a couple, actually, Jamie.
Not concerned about the threat of James Ward-Prowse.
Mate,
I honestly think
game.
I'm coming out of the klaxon. The klaxon is coming out. I think we're going to put Southampton to the sword on TV on Friday night.
Under the lights.
By 75 minutes, the Sky Sports cameras are going to be panning on the stairwells going out of the ground. Because I think it's going to. I just feel it. I've got one of the feelings. 4 or 5-0 for me. You've not even asked for the prediction. You can have it.
Didn't even need to. I mean, that's given me a way to mention the last question I didn't manage to get to from SJB, which said, do you think, are we worried the fact that Leicester, they haven't really, like you said, they haven't really got firing properly, apart from the Newcastle game where, in reality, they probably could have scored 10 if they'd have played particularly well. But do you think that it is about time, a Leicester due a performance where they turn up and just absolutely batter someone?
I don't think Southampton will play that much better than Newcastle. And I think if we score early, then likewise the heads will drop as they have in other matches this season.
So your official prediction then, just to repeat it, is
4-0 Leicester, 3-0 at half time.
That's good. And the goals are going to be Vardy with 2, and the third one and fourth ones.
Havertz is going to score.
I hope so. Ed, are you willing
to... 2-0, Soyoncu and Vardy.
Soyoncu and Vardy.
And also, by the way...
Have you got Vardy in your fantasy team already? Or
Yeah. Whilst we've not been spanking teams, I must say, and I only say this because I'm looking at the league table now, we do have the third best goal difference. So, we're doing more than enough to be winning games statistically. So I wouldn't be too concerned about not winning 4-5-0. It's not like, we've got a really good, solid defence, and attack-wise, there's very few teams in the league scored more. 3 have, so...
I think we're going to really go and do something nice.
What do you think, Jamie?
I agree with you, and I think the fact that we've played 4 out of last season's top 6 also probably suggests a big reason why we haven't really been out and out attacking in any of the games. I think Leicester will win. I think we will keep a clean sheet, and it will be 2-0 as well. That man Vardy has to score, and I'm praying for either a Barnes or a Perez goal. I'm desperate for one of those two to bag a goal. And they're not in my fantasy teams either, so you can't even level that one at me. But this is always the time of the show where I've forgotten to ask you guys if there's anything else that you want to discuss and try and finish it early. Ed, have you got anything?
No.
Okay.
Oh, right. Okay, so Chris, turns out I was wrong. That is going at the start of the show, most likely. And Chris, I presume there's nothing horrible from you, is there?
No. If there was, then it's not even worth mentioning after that. Is it?
Very sorry that we had to finish on that note. If you've made it this far, once again, thank you. I know we say it every week, but we really do appreciate it as we start this fledgling podcast, so to speak. Hopefully, you can join us again next week. We will be reviewing what we hope to be another 3 points. So see you then.
Bye-bye.